welcome to the family meeting. We're glad that you're with us today. We have been gearing up to get ready to leave, actually. We'll be leaving tonight for Pennsylvania for a marriage retreat that's taking place at an kind of an events campground center. And we're really looking forward to it.
Looks like a cool facility.
It does. It's really neat. I know one of the evenings they're going to have like a campfire and stuff, which is always like such a homey feel.
It's going to be 21 couples staying in this spot.
Yep. And the fun thing is, so we love to do these conferences. We love to speak together. But we will be speaking 6 times.
Yeah.
And that is a lot of energy. I wouldn't say a lot of pressure, but it's a lot to like kind of juggle mentally. Like, okay, we're talking about this now, but next we're talking about this. So it's definitely going to be a good challenge for us.
Oh yeah.
But I'm excited for it.
Got a session Thursday night, 4 Friday, 1 Saturday morning.
Yep.
Before we fly back here to make sure we're ready for church Sunday.
Yeah. So we are definitely like gonna have a lot going on this week.
Yeah.
But we are excited. We cannot wait. We're ready. Like I'm kind of like ready to fly right now. Like let's go. Let's get this thing going. You know. That's how I'm feeling. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good about it. The problem is, so we're flying at night, so we're gonna get in and not actually get to where we're gonna sleep till probably after midnight.
And if you have watched this podcast for any amount of time, you know we are in bed at like 8 every night.
Yeah, because
So
this
this will
morning
be
I
tough.
was up at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
to go to the gym and get everything in. So it's we'll see how we do.
Pray for us. Pray for us.
We need
you.
lots of energy.
Yes. Today we're talking about foster parenting, an episode recommended by one of our listeners. So hopefully it'll be a help and a blessing to you, whether or not you do foster. Maybe you're thinking about it, or maybe you know people who do, and how can you support them? So that's what this episode is about today.
I would be interested to hear from you how kind of fostering has affected your life, whether you have friends, whether you've done it yourself, whether you were a foster child. What's the impact the foster care system has had on your life and your family? Let's have that conversation in the comments there.
I love it.
All right. I told you ahead of time that sneeze is coming. I can feel it.
It's coming.
It's
His
coming.
eyes are like filling with water. Now that's one, but he never sneezes once. He's got another one at least, if
see.
not 2.
We'll see.
Was that a one-time sneeze?
We'll see. I still feel something back in there, so
This will be interesting.
see how much we can get through.
Well, God bless you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
He definitely did. Gather round, everybody. It's time for a family meeting. The Family Meeting is a show that's all about family relationships. We're the Ostracamps. I'm Thomas. This is my wife, Lysandra.
What up, yo? Hello and welcome to our family. Welcome to episode 262 of the Family Meeting Podcast. We are so glad that you have joined us today and hope that you are having a great day. Hopefully we don't ruin it by you listening to this
We're making the
podcast.
day better.
That's
This
the goal.
day just got better.
That's the goal. On today's episode, we are going to discuss how families can stay strong in the midst of foster care. Whether you're fostering now, maybe you're considering foster parenting, or you are supporting other foster families like in your church or neighborhood, this episode will encourage you to lean on God's strength and not your own. I think that we're all going to take away something from this episode, whether or not you are a foster parent. And I think what's cool about this episode is it was recommended to us, suggested to us by one of you, our faithful listeners. And we are so grateful for any episode ideas that you send in. It helps us to stay relevant. So thank you.
And I think sometime we need to do an episode on this, but we had a post that came into Family Meeting Community, and it is it's a picture of a wife who's in the ER. She's having a C-section, and her husband fainted. So the caption says, the husband has to be present during the process of the wife giving birth, but during the process he fainted. This is the wife in labor taking a selfie to show him afterwards.
It's so funny.
He's laying on the floor. She's taking a picture. Which I think is funny. I think it shows kind of the playful nature of their relationship. But some of the stories that people are sharing underneath it are kind of funny. David Collins said the anesthesiologist, say that 5 times fast, tried to get me to stand up, but we had been warned that I would receive no help if I fainted since they were there for mom and baby. So I opted to stay behind the sheet when my wife was getting her C-section done.
Where were you when I had my C-section, babe?
Oh, I did not. I stood right by your head the whole time. I did not look over, because it's quite the surgery, like to split you open, like take your insides and set them off to the side, and like
it's
all that.
incredible. Yeah. It's really incredible what women go through in giving birth, whether it is natural or C-section. It's really incredible.
Yours was an emergency C-section, so there were all these emotions and things that were happening.
A lot of fear
on top of that,
and of the unknown.
Jen McGee says, with my first kid, I had an oxygen mask on and was trying to birth a baby when Josh had to sit down on a chair next to me as he got suddenly faint-ish. She said, haha, I distinctly remember pulling off my oxygen mask for a second to ask if he was okay. Yeah, I thought that was funny. Josh Cormican says, what a wimp. He should have been there to tell her, you've got this, dude. Which
is a quote from Stacy's labor that Josh said to her.
Literally.
You got this, dude.
What he told her. And so I commented that I definitely did not look during your C-section. And Ryan said, I looked during all of my kids' births, but not C-sections. So.
Because they didn't have C-sections. Is that what he's saying?
No, he didn't look at
the C-section.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Yvette says, didn't have a C-section, but I have to tell you, my husband was all in the business while I was pushing out our kids. I had to tell him to back off and stand next to me, and he didn't move until the doctor redirected him.
He was interested in seeing the miracle of birth.
Yeah. And it's such an incredible process, no matter how it happens. Whether natural birth or by C-section, it's just such an amazing thing. Mm-hmm. Andrea Norden says, Tony didn't look during my C-sections either time. I don't blame him.
Yeah, I don't think I would. I don't know, though. I'm such a curious person. I might look if it was not me.
Yeah, I've talked to friends who have looked and watched the whole thing, and they were kind of curious and wanting to know what the process was and all that. And I was just like, yeah, I don't think so. Like,
for our first birth that was natural, Thomas did not want to see anything. He was like, no, didn't want to cut the cord or anything, just stayed up by my head. That was Catherine.
Yeah.
But for Isabella, he was much more comfortable. I think you watched. Did you
watch the whole thing?
Isabella come out?
Yep,
and
watched the whole thing.
Cut the umbilical cord.
I kind of watched Catherine, but it was from an upper view, so I couldn't see like a lot that was going on. Like I did see her come out, but it was not
from
as
an
invasive.
Angle
yeah,
yeah, a safer angle.
Yeah, and so, but with Isabella, I was all down there watching everything happen. Cut the cord. Yep. I was too scared the first time. I didn't even cut the cord.
Now then, Abigail was the emergency C-section, so he was right by my head. What about Violet? Were you watching everything happen?
Yeah, watched for Violet. The doctor got me with Violet.
Yeah.
On cutting the cord, because I'd cut the cord for Isabella. So I knew how to do it. Went to cut the cord the same way, and then the doctor was like, "No, cut it from this direction." And I cut it from the direction that he told me to, and the cord blood sprayed on me instead of him. So I was like, dude,
that's
you're literally
dirty.
You're literally wearing stuff covering you. I'm not. Like, seriously? Whatever, guy.
That was kind of funny. I feel like with everything that you have pulled on me over my life, you totally deserved that.
Yeah, I know.
I think our listeners would agree with me.
I was like, come on, bro. But so jump into that conversation. We'd love to hear your story. You're watching on YouTube. Share your stories as well. We are getting ready. Actually, we're telling those who are on YouTube, we're leaving tonight to head up to Johnstown, Pennsylvania to be with Andrew Taylor and our friends at Faith Baptist Church up there. Not actually going to be held in Jamestown. It's going to be held at a facility up there. Let me see if I have this in front of me. It's going to be held at the White Sulphur Springs. Like, there's a facility up there.
It's like an event center.
Yeah. kind of like a lodge and all that. 21 couples staying at the lodge, and there's a meeting space and all that. So looking forward to that good time together. Got a lot of interesting things we're going to be talking about. Focusing in a little bit on internal, external marital pressures and things like that. So I think it'll be a great time together working on marriage relationships. And maybe you're listening to this and you're thinking about putting on your own marriage event, whether a conference, retreat, a one-day thing. If there's a way that we can help out with your marriage event, feel free to reach out to us, info@familymeeting.org, and we'll see if we can get you on the schedule. By the time the year's over, it'll be 9 marriage events for this year, 2025. It's been a great year. Got a few still to go, but one of our favorite things to do, and we're looking forward to being with our friends up in Johnstown.
Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into today's episode talking about foster care. We have listeners who are foster parents. Thomas and I were raised in a church where there was a lot of foster parenting and adoption in the church that we grew up in as children and teenagers. And then we left that church, came back, and Thomas pastored that church. And so a lot of those adopted and foster kids then were in our church under our pastoral care.
Yeah.
And boy, did we love it. I mean, we loved it. We did not foster care ourselves. We did not do foster care ourselves. So I just want to be clear about that. But we tried, I would say, certainly to support those who were doing foster care in our church and to just really love on these kids as they came in and out of church, because, you would see these kids for a little while and they'd be in your Sunday school class and everything. And then, they're gone. Okay. They got placed or whatever. And then of course, some of them had such lovely stories where they were in foster care with a couple at our church, and then they would be adopted by that couple.
Yep.
And now they're, permanently in our church in that family, and it's so beautiful. So we really definitely have a heart for foster care. It just was not what God had for our family.
Yeah, we looked into it. We did look into it. We went to a bunch of the meetings and all that about it, and just where our kids were at the time and where our family was at the time, it just wasn't good fit for us. But we are so thankful for all of the people involved in the foster care system who are doing it the right way and taking kids in and loving them exactly like their own. It is such a special relationship, but fostering does put a certain amount of pressure on your family, on your marriage relationship, and which is kind of one of the things we want to focus in on today.
It is. Foster care is one of the most beautiful and challenging callings that a family can walk through, and I do believe it is a calling. I don't think God necessarily has that plan for every single family, but I know he has it for certain families. It does stretch your faith, it tests your patience, and sometimes I'm sure it can leave you feeling very overwhelmed. But it also reflects the very heart of God, who welcomes the vulnerable into his family, which I think is such a beautiful picture.
Well, and I love this verse in Psalm 68, verse 5. It says this: Father of the fatherless and protector of widows is God in his holy habitation. And there are a lot of verses about how much he cares about the fatherless and those who cannot defend and protect themselves. Deuteronomy 10:18 talks about him executing justice for the fatherless and the widow. And of course, James, we turn to the New Testament, and James 1:27 talks about what real faith looks like. And it says this: religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained from the world. And so we can very clearly see that God has a heart for these kids who, for whatever the reason is, don't have their parents to look out for them. And maybe it is, only for a small amount of time where their parents aren't around for whatever reason. There's a number of reasons why a kid would end up in the foster care system. But whatever the length of time and whatever the reason, God does care about them.
Yes, he does so much.
And we ought to care about them.
Absolutely. Right. Yes. We cannot just bury our head in the sand and pretend that there are not children who need homes, but to do what God has called us to do. And maybe he hasn't called you to foster, but you know someone who is fostering, and you can support them in that way. And you can love those children, even if you're not the one fostering them.
Well, and you bring up a good point, because even if foster care isn't what God has called you to, the people in your life who are involved in foster care could certainly use your love and support and your encouragement.
Yes, for sure.
Whether that's just being there, providing meals, and just recognizing the children that are in their home. Like, there's so many ways that you can be there to support them and have an impact, even though you're not directly involved in the foster care program.
That's right. Let's look at this verse in Isaiah 117. It says, learn to do good, seek justice, correct opposition, bring justice to the fatherless, plead the widow's cause. And so often we see the widows and the fatherless kind of put together in Scripture. And this is because those were people who could not provide for themselves. They had no way in that time period, in that culture, of providing for themselves. And that is where followers of Jesus were supposed to step in.
Well, and it's not just that they couldn't provide for themselves, especially in this verse in Isaiah where he talks about correcting oppression. Like, they were often taken advantage of because they didn't have that person who could stand up for them. And he said, hey, you should be the person who's willing to stand up for them.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so maybe that is something that we can do. And maybe that's what you have been called to do, or maybe you're considering it. If you are considering it, here are some of the pressures that foster families can face. We're going to look at a lot of different pressures that are added. Listen, parenting is hard. Yeah. Even if they are your own biological children, like mom and dad are the same and everybody's biologically related in the family. Parenting is hard in that case. It's hard when it's blended families and you've got steps or halves and you're all trying to operate together as a family unit.
Yeah.
Fostering brings its own challenges. And so we want to talk about those specific challenges today, not only for those of you who are considering foster care, but also for those of you who are doing it. And just to say, listen, we see what you're doing and we understand that it's hard. We understand that this is not easy. And these are some of the pressures that you're facing, you know better than us even because you're in it. Or maybe you haven't really thought about it and you didn't realize, like, wow, this is affecting my marriage or my family in this way. So just something to be aware of.
And I think even if you're not directly involved in the foster care system, understanding these things will help you be a better support and encouragement to the people in your life that are. One of the first things that I think about when I think about these unique emotional and relational pressures that the foster families face is attachment and loss. Foster parents are encouraged to form deep emotional bonds with children in their care. But often they have to let them go back to their birth families or move placements. And so you're building these connections, these close connections, and then those connections are broken. And this is happening over and over again. You have this repeated cycle of attachment and loss. And it can be heartbreaking for both parents and foster siblings.
That's right. And ultimately, when it came right down to it, this was one of the main reasons that we did not do foster care. I tend to love 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. I love hard and fast, and I could not. I don't believe I could have a child in my home that I did not right away attempt to love as my own child, and so I'm not great at like keeping those walls up emotionally.
Yeah.
And I've already been called to do this kind of a thing through our ministry. When you pastor a church, and I'm married to a pastor, and when you do that, you have people in your care for a while, and those people leave for different reasons. They move away, they get angry, they very happily and quietly go to a different church or whatever. And every time that happens, there is this grief of loss. And I definitely have that calling in my life that God has wanted. This is what God wants for me to do. And I think that we both kind of came to the conclusion that I could not handle doing that in our home as a family and also with church people because of the way it affects me with church people.
Yeah, well, just how rough it is. Obviously, God gives the grace and all that, and but there's always this period of mourning that Lysandra goes through. I kind of process things a little bit faster. It doesn't affect me as deeply and as much, just based on personality and everything else. But as difficult it is with even church people who don't like you for whatever reason, man, with children and how close the attachment gets when you are the primary caregiver for any amount of time. Because I think of just our kids' friends and when they come over and the care and the concern and everything that you show for them. So you have these kids in your home, and those of you who are directly involved in the foster care system and you're doing a great job at it. You understand that attachment and the love and the care, and you're treating these kids and inviting them in like they're your own children. And then to have them move on for whatever the reason is, whether they are reunited with their families, their birth families, or whether they get moved to a different placement or whatever else, it's a difficult thing.
Yeah. And I find it interesting the idea of how it affects the siblings as well.
Yeah.
I very selfishly looked at foster care thinking about how it would affect me, but I never really thought about our kids becoming close friends or feeling like a sister to whomever we had in our home. So it's a very interesting thing to think about. Another challenge that is really difficult for the foster care families is that they're dealing with a lot of unresolved trauma in the children that they foster. And many of these foster children come from situations that involve abuse, neglect, abandonment. There's a reason that these poor kids have been put in the foster care system. Some tragedy, some trauma has happened to them or their family members. And so there's a good chance that they're going to exhibit behaviors like anger, withdrawal, mistrust, or developmental delays. And all of these things require so much patience.
Yeah.
And you also have to be informed on how to care for someone who has gone through traumas like this. And there's a certain amount of emotional resilience needed in foster parents to walk with children through this trauma that they're going through. So that's a really big challenge.
When I think of not just things that have happened to the children themselves, what they've seen and what they've experienced, but also oftentimes they're affected by what's happened in the womb, whether it's fetal alcohol syndrome, drug use, and whatever else, that does have an impact on their behavior and who they are as a child. And so you're right, there are so many factors when it comes to the special care and concern that these children often need. I also think about the guilt and self-doubt that foster parents often feel. Maybe they're not doing enough. Like they're feeling as a parent anyway.
Right.
But especially, you've got these foster children that come into your care, and if you feel like their progress is slow, or maybe a placement ends painfully,
right.
They may question their ability or feel guilt over not being able to fix whatever is broken. And like we talked about, there's all that complicated stuff that you can't just easily fix, and it doesn't just go away right away.
No.
And sometimes, especially if you're of the mindset of fixing things, and you're not being able to do that, there's a lot of emotions that come along with that.
That's right. One of the, I guess, kind of collateral damages involved with foster parenting is the strain on your marriage and the strain on, your family in general, but especially the marriage, because there's a lot going into this. And, I think it's even worse if the parents are not fully on the same page. If maybe one parent is like, come on, I really, really want to do this. And the other one's like, well, okay, I guess. That's not on the same page. One is passionate about it and one is kind of being like dragged along, or just like, well, I love you, so I'm going to do this. That's not the same thing. And the intensity of fostering can create conflict between spouses so easily. Whether it's over discipline, how do you handle that? Emotional boundaries or time management, things like that can really come into play. And I think about like all of those things come into parenting and marriages when you're parenting your own biological children, and how much more when you add in foster children, because then you may have disagreements on like, well, we're doing this with our biological children, but we have to do this with the foster children.
Yeah.
And so then that adds in a whole new kind of can of worms to argue about and to disagree over. And couples oftentimes will, of course, have less time alone with each other, less time for investment in their own marriages because they're giving time to these children. And a lot of times that is going to have a big relationship pressure on you.
Well, you mentioned, time alone. Because it does complicate things, to have foster children in your home when you talk about trying to get away. Because if it's your biological children, you can just choose who you trust to watch your kids. But when
Right.
it comes to foster, children, you don't have the choice of, hey, just sending them with this person or that person, even though you know them and trust them with your own kids. Like, you have to find and have people who are approved to be able to care for these children while you're gone. And so it creates so much complication. A lot of times there maybe aren't enough people to provide respite care and all that. So it's just,
Yeah.
you're right. That can create its own relational problems on top of everything else.
Mm-hmm.
You also have to think about, your biological children's emotional needs.
Yeah.
So if you're fostering and you have your own biological children in the house, that creates its own set of issues and complicates things even more, because your birth children in foster families may feel jealous, overlooked, or confused about why a new child receives so much attention or has different rules.
Yeah, and we definitely experienced this in our home when we somewhat took in our nieces when their parents were going through a divorce. And 3 of our nieces came to us, and I homeschooled them along with homeschooling our own daughters.
Yeah.
So I was homeschooling 7 kids. I know a lot of you are like, I had 8 kids. No big deal.
Yeah.
It felt like a big deal to me at that time, so to speak. But I remember the girls telling me, because we did family meetings just to check in on our kids and see if they were doing okay with the extra kids in the house. And I remember the girls telling me, I think it was Violet, who would have been like 6 or 7. And she said, Mommy, I was jealous when my cousin, fill in the blank, the name, was sitting on your lap when we watched that movie. But I knew that she needed time with you. So I didn't say anything, but it made me feel sad because I wanted to sit on your lap. And it was like, oh, it like hurts my heart. But yet I know what the cousin was going through at that time. And she so badly just needed somebody to love her and give her attention. And so I think about that because that really does come into play when you have your biological children and you've got other kids in the house that you're taking care of. Jealousy is a natural part of that.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen.
Well, and I also think about things like birth order.
Mm-hmm.
You bring foster children in, and that birth order is kind of disrupted in whatever way, shape, or form. And we've talked on the podcast about that and the impact that it could possibly have on your children. And so, you think about things like that as well. And then also we touched on it. We talked about attachment and that, but your biological children may also grieve when a foster sibling leaves. Mm-hmm. Or just struggle with the emotional volatility in the home. So that kind of adds some pressures as well.
Yeah. Another pressure that I think may be the worst of all is the relationship that you have to have a lot of times with the foster family. Some foster families, and I know this based on kind of walking through foster care with friends of ours who did foster. And there are situations where the foster family is so grateful.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking care of my baby. I'm working on it. I'm getting better. Thank you so much. You're being so good to my kid. And then there are parents who terribly resent the foster family as the enemy.
Yeah.
The foster family stole my child, which of course is not true, but that is their perspective. And they treat you that way. So it can be a terrible situation. Foster families, they're usually expected to cooperate with the child's birth family, where they have, visits, or maybe even where they come and pick up the child for a visit at their own home or whatever. And this happens even when this child has had trauma from this person, or this child has been neglected by this person. And that's hard to send them back into that, even if it is a supervised visit or whatever else. But there's a lot of emotional complexity to that. That is not simple.
Yeah.
That is tough. And so balancing that, the two sides of the coin there, the compassion and the protection, that's got to be tough. Balancing the very difficult, and finding that tension between boundaries and openness, that's tough stuff. I mean, you guys are in the thick of it. That is not simple. That's really difficult, and we recognize that.
Well, and we start to get into some of that stuff. It makes me think about the judges who it's their responsibility to decide where these children are going to go, if they're going to go, back to the biological parents and all that. And that is one job where I am so grateful that that's not my job.
I could not do it. I don't even know how. I don't know how they do it.
It is a big responsibility. Mm-hmm. But I'm thankful for those who sit in that position and make the difficult choices.
And I really haven't thought about this until this moment, which is not good for me. But we should be praying for those judges.
Yeah.
We should really be praying that God gives them wisdom, and the social workers who are right in the middle of all of this, and the emotional trauma that they experience through their jobs. And I'm thankful for the social workers as well.
Well, and thinking about the judges and the courts and just the whole system for these kids, foster parents have to navigate all this stuff. The court dates, the caseworker visits, the therapy appointments, the bureaucratic rules, all of which can feel invasive and overwhelming, I'm sure, at times. Mm-hmm. And man, thinking about the judges, but also thinking about these caseworkers, these social workers, and there are so many great social workers out there that are doing everything they can do to help foster parents navigate this as best as possible, while also being there for the kids. We have known many wonderful social workers over the years. Mm-hmm. Some of the most compassionate, loving people I think we have met. But when you're thinking about the system and foster parents navigating this, decisions about the child's future are often made without the foster family's input.
Right. Which
can create, frustration, feelings of powerlessness, and all that stuff, where they literally don't have a say. You're just trying to love and take care of these kids as best as possible while they're in your care.
Yeah, and having walked with different families through fostering, and one in particular that I was thinking about, who was fostering with the intention of adoption, and that was the plan all along.
Yeah.
I remember how many disappointments there were. There would be a court case scheduled, and then it gets canceled the day before.
Yeah.
And you don't know why. You have no information often. And so the parents' rights are going to be terminated, and this baby is going to be mine. Nope. This happened. That happened. An aunt came out of the woodwork, and now an aunt or uncle wants to try to take the child. And just all of this, it's just an emotional roller coaster, and you're really at the mercy of the courts, and it's really, really tough. And then if you're going through all of this, one of the saddest things is that these foster parents can often experience lack of understanding from other people. Friends, extended family, or even church communities if they don't understand the realities of fostering, or maybe they're just not compassionate to it, or they don't really see that it's necessary or a good thing, this can be so difficult and leave the foster parents feeling isolated or judged or unsupported. And that's magnified when they're dealing with behavioral issues from these kids, or struggles with the biological parents. Yeah. And then they have no one to turn to, no one to vent to, no one to pray for them. And so that can be really, really difficult. So if you know someone that is a foster parent, please reach out to them, check on them, pray for them, ask how you can support them. Maybe you can do something special for their kids so that their kids feel special, even though, they're sharing mom and dad with other kids.
Well, and that is one of the goals of this episode, is to help create some understanding for people who they're not in it, so you don't know the ins and outs. Unless you have somebody close by who's doing it, or you've done it yourself, you don't really know or understand what's happening. And so hopefully this episode can shed some light on what they're going through and how you can better assist them through this. And I think of all these different pressures that we're kind of talking about, despite all this, having love and purpose, even with these pressures, many foster families say the experience is deeply meaningful and rooted in love, calling, or faith.
Yeah, it's not, even though all of these things that we've talked about is a reality, they're all realities, and they're part of the territory. Like, it doesn't mean we're saying don't do it.
Right.
It doesn't mean we're saying quit doing it. It just means like we understand that this stuff is a reality. This is what you're getting into, or this is what you are in currently. And we feel for you, we care for you, and sometimes it's just good to hear somebody say like, yeah, that's really hard.
Yeah. And having somebody come up to you and ask how it's going.
Yeah.
And really truly listen, so that they don't feel that isolation.
Mm-hmm.
They don't feel that judgment. They've got a place and a space to grieve. They get encouragement from their community.
Mm-hmm. And even though fostering is hard and there are difficulties, we want to talk about what you can do. So maybe you are fostering, or maybe you're considering it. If you are, we want to help you to think about how to guard your marriage and your family unity in the middle of the fostering chaos. Like in the middle of the court dates being changed, or the biological parents knocking on the door in the middle of the night, or the kids coming and going and getting attached, and all of this, that kind of fostering chaos that is brought into your family unit. We want to talk about how can you guard your marriage? How can you protect your family in the midst of all this? And so the first thing that we want to encourage you to do, now we are family meeting and we are all about helping you with your family relationships.
Yeah.
And after your relationship with the Lord, which we strongly encourage you, if you don't have a relationship with the Lord, seek Jesus, accept Jesus' free gift of salvation, and have that relationship with God restored. But after that relationship, the most important relationship in your life is the one with your spouse. Your spouse is the most important relationship here on earth. It's your most important human relationship. And so what we want to encourage you to do is to protect your marriage first, not last. And a lot of times marriages get put to the back. We've seen it with families that are just, the traditional family unit. We've seen it with blended families and with foster families. So make sure that you are protecting your marriage first. In Ecclesiastes 4:12, we're reminded that a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. And the 3 strands represent you, your spouse, and the Lord. So prioritize your spouse, prioritize your relationship with the Lord. Every day you should be prioritizing your spouse, even if it's in small ways. Maybe it's eye contact. Put the phone down and look at them in the eye when they're talking to you.
Yeah.
I think about Thomas, I can't remember if it was last night or this morning, but I was laying in bed and he just came over to me and just gave me a kiss and told me how much he loved me. And then he went on doing whatever he had to do.
It was last night. Yeah.
Was that last night? Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm just, I remember laying there thinking like, I'm so blessed that I have a husband who does that. And I'm so thankful for that. So do that for your spouse. Wives, do that for your husbands. Pray for your spouse. Pray out loud for them to hear. Maybe in the car. Maybe you're on your way to go pick up your next placement. Pray for your spouse through this upcoming change in dynamic. Share meals together. Do 10-minute check-ins. I think these are a really cool idea. 10-minute check-ins, right? So we can't go on a 3-hour date night. There's just no way we can do that right now. But I can have a 10-minute check-in where, okay, I just, put the kids down for a quick nap. I've got 10 minutes before I have to have this work meeting, whatever. 10 minutes. How you doing? You okay? Okay, here's how I'm doing.
Well, and we kind of did this last night, after our young adult small group that we host and lead here at our house. Lysandra and I just went for a quick walk. It was getting ready to storm, so we didn't want to walk too far from the house, so we kind of walked just real close by. Wasn't a long time, 10, 15 minutes, but it was enough to just connect, check in on each other, have an update about what's going on, some small talk conversation, just connecting in that way also. So it doesn't have to be this big, long thing. You're right.
No.
I think that's, small check-ins can go a long way.
Absolutely. And the thing to understand is that foster care often consumes your emotional bandwidth. I mean, you can get to where you just feel like you have nothing left. But your marriage is the core of the stability that you're trying to offer these children. If you have a terrible marriage, then they may be going out of the frying pan into the fire in your house. Yeah. Like, you've got to have a strong marriage because you're trying to give these kids stability, and that is going to come from your relationship with your spouse. If you are strong there, they're going to feel that strength trickle down to their foster siblings and into their own relationship with you. So just really think about that. And maybe one thing that you could do is schedule some non-negotiable time together where, like, okay, no matter what happens, this is non-negotiable. This is an appointment on my calendar I'm not going to miss. You're not going to miss a court date. Right. Guaranteed. Yeah. When that foster kid has to be in that court date, or you have to be to that court, you will do whatever you have to do to get there. You will take time off work. You will rearrange dentist or doctor's appointments. You will do whatever, because that's a non-negotiable time, an appointment. That's what you need to create with your spouse. Even if it's just 30 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it needs to be, schedule some of non-negotiable time where it is going to happen. Because you got to remember, you're not co-workers. Yeah. You're not both social workers in this home. You are co-parents. You are marriage. You are a covenant team. And so you're more than roommates or coworkers. You are in love with each other, or maybe you're not in love anymore and you're just choosing to love your spouse. Trust me, me and Thomas have both been there.
Yeah, this week.
Yeah. There's more to your relationship than that. And so you've got to invest in it.
Yeah. And so great thoughts on protecting your marriage. I think you should also establish clear communication rhythms. Foster care brings constant updates.
Oh, yeah.
Behaviors, appointments, and decisions. It's easy to become transactional. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But you have to develop daily or weekly rhythms for intentional communication. And so think about, hey, what's working? Where are you feeling overwhelmed? What did God show you this week? And so you're kind of just sharing with each other, keeping each other updated. And that's one of the things about, maybe it's just on one of these, 10-minute check-ins where, hey, we've only got a couple of minutes. Let's check in real quick.
Yeah, and it's got to go deeper than what appointments do you have today. It's got to go deeper. It's got to get to feelings, which I know a lot of you are like, ugh, feelings, pugh. But listen, that's where really rubber meets the road. That's the reality of what's happening underneath the scheduling and everything else. And so saying, like, are you overwhelmed? How's your relationship with God? Those kind of questions need to come into play. So that you're not just transactional. It's not like every interaction is just like, can you pick up the kids and bring them here? Can you make sure that this one gets the bath? Like, it can't be transactional. It's got to be deeper than that.
Well, and it's great to use a shared calendar or journal to track info. Like, that's great. Do what works for you with that. Maybe it's, a whiteboard on the fridge or whatever. But don't let logistics replace heart-level connection.
Mm-hmm. So good. That's good. That's good parenting, marriage advice for whether or not you're a foster parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's more important because you're adding all these extra stresses and complications,
right,
logistically and everything else. And sometimes it's just, we can get caught up and just relay information and not really connect with each other.
Absolutely. All right. This is important. Guard your home's atmosphere. This is really important. Every home has an atmosphere. And I am sure that you have at one point walked into someone's home where you were like, oh, get me out of here. This is so uncomfortable and awkward. Or like you can just feel anger in the air. Maybe it's been in a car ride. I've been in a car ride before where the atmosphere was like
You just feel
terrible.
like the tension and the stress and the conflict in the air without anybody saying anything.
Yeah. And you know that your kids are in that. Like, that's what your kids are in if your atmosphere in your home is not good. That's what you and your spouse are living in. And that's what you're bringing your foster kids into. So think about the atmosphere in your home. Of course, foster care, it's going to bring that chaos from the outside, but don't let it reign inside your house. And how can you do that? Like, I know you're like, okay, great. I get it. The atmosphere in my home is terrible, but what am I supposed to do? This is the reality of what we're living in. So one thing that you can do is set clear, loving boundaries with the system. It's okay to say no. So I remember one of our friends who was fostering a child got a phone call. The child's mother had a sibling. It was actually a full biological sibling. It was the mother and father, same mother and father. And they said, we really want these kids to be together. Can you take both of them? And they went back and forth, back and forth. Eventually, they did take the child. I remember our Pastor Plinus in Maryland, they were in their 70s, 60s, 70s, somewhere up in there.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they got a call. It's 4 foster children. They're biologically related. They all need a placement. Can they all come? And that was a lot for them to take on, but they said yes. And that's awesome. And I respect that, and I appreciate that. But you got to understand, it's okay to say no. It's okay to say, I can't take another child.
Yeah.
Or it's okay to say, listen, my daughter's about to graduate. I can't have extra fostering in the home right now. We got to get through this graduation or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So if you need to set some boundaries with the system, set those boundaries and say no.
And we know that's hard because you're a certain type of person if you're fostering children.
Yes, you are.
You want to help children. You want to rescue them.
Yeah.
You want to save them from whatever the circumstances that they're in.
Your heart's already there.
And so it's hard to say no. And you feel like, the weight of this child's future rests upon you saying yes. But it doesn't. It really doesn't. And so as hard as it is to say no sometimes, the best thing that you can do is say no sometimes.
That's right. That's right. And maybe it's not about saying no. Maybe you've already got the kids in your house. Well, how can you protect your home's atmosphere at that point? Here's some things that you can do, and that is you can have some predictable rhythms for meals, for rest, for worship. If it's like every night the kids come home from school, we have 1 hour of homework, we all sit down at the dinner table and eat a meal together, everybody gets baths, and then it's devotions and bedtime. That's a predictable rhythm that is going to help your children, your spouse, you. It's going to, and it's things that are important, right? The homework is important. Yeah. Everybody's got to eat. Yeah. But what about some time for worship? What about some time for talking about the Lord? These are things that are going to change the atmosphere in your home. It is hard to be like angry and nasty when you're talking about how good God is and when you're talking about his beautiful creation. So changing from the tension into some worship time is going to change the atmosphere of your home. Playing worshipful music, uplifting music in the home can change the atmosphere. Taking care of your own issues will change the atmosphere in your home. If you and your spouse are fighting, that is absolutely felt in the home. I know that it's felt between the two of you, but it's not like you can just hide that from your kids or your foster kids. So like we said, that's why we started with protecting your marriage first. But if you can get your own spiritual life in order and your own marriage in order, then the atmosphere of your home is going to naturally become more a place of peace, not pressure. Remember, you're not trying to be perfect. You're just trying to be anchored in the right things and prioritize the right things.
Well, and you mentioned these predictable rhythms, and they're so important and so valuable because most of these children are coming from absolute chaos.
Yes.
Which breeds fear and all this stuff. And so the more predictable the rhythms and the life of these children in an unpredictable time of their life, not knowing where they're going to be next, what house they're going to sleep at next, am I going back to mom and dad? Like, there's so much that is unpredictable, and the more that you can make predictable in their life, the safer that they'll feel.
The routine.
Exactly. They find comfort in that. They're struggling with a lot already, and so, as Lysandra mentioned, these predictable rhythms, they go a long way in these children's lives, and of course for your own children, your own marriage as well. I think we also need to lean into prayer and spiritual practices together. And I love this verse, Psalm 127, verse number 1. Not talking about your personal home, but I think there's a principle there that we can kind of take away. Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. And that's true of whatever you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
If God's not in it, it's going to be empty. And so we ought to make regular prayer with and for each other a daily habit, a routine. This helps to quiet anxiety and realign your hearts with God's presence. So talked about this with your marriage and your spouse, but true of your whole family. Practice spiritual habits together. Scripture at the table. Maybe you make gratitude lists, things that we're thankful for. Praying over beds at night. Just inviting God into the mess. Not just asking for the miracles.
Right, absolutely. That's so good. Another thing that you can do to kind of help with the home and everything that you're going to be doing is not be afraid to ask for help, okay? You don't have to be ashamed to ask for help, getting outside support. You can talk to your pastor. You can talk to friends that you trust or counselors. Maybe you need to go to marriage counseling to keep your own marriage strong before you can really handle fostering. But go to get respite care from people who are licensed. Go to the support groups, the foster parenting support groups.
Yeah.
Whatever you can do. You weren't meant to carry this mission alone. Asking for help is wise. It's not weak. So make sure that you are doing what you need to do in that respect.
And I like this, thinking about, what is your perspective? Because it is so easy, and there's a natural tendency for us to look at the negative things that are happening. And with foster care, there can be a lot of chaos, a lot going on, a lot of stress. But instead of focusing on those things, let's focus in on the blessings, on the good things, and speak about them often. In the midst of behavior issues and system chaos, it's easy to speak only on what's urgent at the moment and what the big problem or issue is. But what we want to encourage you to do is just to stop to speak words of life. I see how much you're caring. Thank you. I love doing this with you. These words to your spouse in the midst of all that are huge.
It's like throwing someone a life raft.
Yeah. You hear your spouse say, "This is hard, but I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else." That's encouragement. And it's rooted in reality, right? Hey, this is hard.
Yeah.
But hey, I wouldn't want to do this with anyone else. It talks about, lets them know how well, they're helping out and in the trenches with you. Blessing each other builds resilience and rekindles connection.
That's right. It's so important. And we've got to understand that it's not that your home has to be calm to be unified, because
we got 4 teenage girls. It's rarely calm around here.
And I think about that season of our life where we had our 3 nieces living with us for a while. It was anything but calm. It was loud and chaotic and toys and all kinds of playing pretend, and it was fun. It wasn't bad. It was just really loud.
Well, and it was worth it because we knew we were helping these girls at a very difficult time in their lives.
That's right. So it's not that you're necessarily trying to be calm, but you are trying to offer stability, a place of love and peace and hope in the storm. And even though your house may be kind of loud and chaotic, that doesn't mean it's not peaceful and loving. So just keep that in mind. You're not trying to be perfect. Remember that. None of us are trying to be perfect. I want Thomas to be perfect, but the rest of us don't have to.
Yeah, exactly.
Just you, babe. But instead of trying to be perfect, just try to be present. Try to be prayerful. Try to be united. Try to be loving. These kinds of things. You're not perfect and you're not expected to be. But just really lean into the Lord and ask him to help you to be the kind of foster parent you are supposed to be.
Well, we kind of want to close out this episode with just some encouragement for all of you wonderful foster parents who are out there. And let me just say this. I know we've talked about a lot of the chaos. We brought a little bit of reality and pulled the curtain behind a lot of the things that are happening. But I'll say this, like, it's such a worthwhile endeavor. Mm-hmm. And I would encourage all parents to at least explore the option. Mm-hmm. Like, at least ask God, is this something you want me to do? Spend some time talking to a social worker and getting some ideas. Maybe go to a couple of the introductory classes and just figure out, hey, is this something that we can do to be a help and a blessing? You know, I go back to that verse in James that talks about what real religion, real faith, real Christian life looks like. Taking care of those who cannot care and help themselves, the fatherless, the widows in their affliction. And so I think it's something, especially Christians, ought to at least explore if this is an avenue God might have you to serve and to help people. But those of you who are in it right now, we want to say a couple of things to you. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe you feel like giving up. I want to say you're not failing. Mm-hmm. You're fighting. And you're fighting for something that is worth fighting for. Mm-hmm. These kids are worth fighting for. Yeah. They're worth going through the trouble. The fact that you feel exhausted doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It likely means you're doing something sacred. You're standing in the gap. You're carrying burdens that weren't meant for your shoulders alone. You're loving a child or children who may not know how to receive love yet. Mm-hmm. That's not failure. That's faithfulness. You're doing an incredible thing.
Yes, and we want to encourage you by reminding you that you are allowed to cry. If you need to cry, cry. Yeah. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to say no or to say, this is too much. Remember, even Jesus wept. And if Jesus wept, certainly you can weep. And if Jesus pulled away from the crowds to restore his soul and to build back up his own emotional abilities, you can too. You don't have to be superhuman.
Well, and I think about, you know, there they are on the sea. He's with his disciples in the boat in the storm, and Jesus is laying there and taking a nap. It's like sometimes even in the midst of all the storm and everything that's happening in life, the best thing, the most spiritual thing, the most helpful thing you can do is follow Jesus' example and just take a nap. You earned it.
Oh, I love that. I would like to take that advice. I would like to take a nap.
Yeah.
I love naps. Just remember, though, that what you're doing is incredibly hard, and it's okay to say so. It's okay to admit the truth. You don't need to minimize your pain just because someone else has it so much worse than you. Your pain matters. It's real. And the fatigue that you're experiencing matters. It's real. And your healing matters. Yeah. So just keep those things in mind.
Well, and I just love the fact that you don't have to be, quote unquote, fine. Like, it's okay to be authentic with what you're feeling. And I'll say this, God sees you, mm-hmm. especially in the unseen moments. There are a lot of times where people don't see you, mm-hmm. where your church family may not see you and what you're going through. They may not know, may understand. Your extended family may not see it. Sometimes our own spouse doesn't see everything that we do. I know there are a ton of things Lysandra does that I just don't notice. I don't see. It's easy to feel overlooked, but God does see you. The midnight meltdowns, God sees it. The court rulings you have no say in. The broken systems. The prayers you whisper when no one else is around. God is not measuring your success by outcomes. Mm-hmm. He is present with you in the process. You're not meant to be those children's savior. They only have one savior. Mm-hmm. His name is Jesus. Yes. And I just want to remind you of Galatians 6:9. Let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. You may not see the fruit yet, but the seeds are being planted. And I think of Lysandra mentioned a little while ago our pastor growing up and his wife, and it was so powerful to see because they fostered children for decades. To see many of those kids after they grew up often come back different times, whether it was for birthdays or whatever, just to show up for a church service while they were in town, to see the gratitude, the love, the support, and for Robert and Marilyn to get to see the impact they've had on these kids' lives who are now grown up and had their own families. And it's a beautiful thing. But while you're in it, it can be hard to remember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it might feel like nothing's changing. Yeah. Like I'm not doing anything. Nothing's changing. This love isn't enough. I'm pouring myself into all of this for nothing. But the truth is you are sowing seeds. You're sowing seeds of safety, of stability, of what love looks like. And God waters the seeds even though you can't see it happening. And you might not know what happens when that child leaves your home. What is the next step or what happens to them after that? But God can handle that. He is the father to the fatherless. And maybe you're thinking of giving up. And I just want to say, don't make that decision alone. Don't make that decision in exhaustion. Breathe, rest, pray, talk to someone who loves you. And remember that God is not asking you to do this perfectly, just faithfully, one step at a time. If this is what he's called you to do, then you can do it. And if you would like some more maybe information, maybe you'd like a bonus resource, we have one for you, and it is called 10 Scriptures to Pray Over Your Foster Family. So if that's something that would help you or something that you would like, you can email us at info@familymeeting.org, info@familymeeting.org. And we will send you that bonus resource, 10 Scriptures to Pray Over Your Foster Family.
In family meeting tonight, there are going to be two different conversations. First one's going to be for all of our wonderful foster parents out there. You're going to sit down with your spouse and just have a conversation. Check in. How are you doing? And what can we do to strengthen our marriage and our family in the midst of everything that we have going on right now? Every single marriage can do something to strengthen. Like, no matter how good or how great your marriage is, you can always work on it. You can always strengthen it. You can always be better. And that's true of you wonderful foster parents as well. What can you do to strengthen? And you can go through and talk about some of the things that we have shared, steps that you can take that were talked about in this episode. And then for those of you who you're not fostering kids, all right? I want you to think about the foster parents that you know in your life, whether they go to your church, maybe it's a family member, a neighbor, somebody like that, or maybe you say, you know what, I don't know any foster parents. You can have a conversation with some social workers and things like that, and you can get connected to some foster parents. But the foster parents that you know, I want you to have a conversation with your spouse and talk about, hey, what's something we can do this week to be a help and an encouragement to some foster parents that we know. And maybe it's just making a meal. Maybe it's baking cookies and taking it over, and it's just a way of saying, hey, we see you. Mm-hmm. We see what you're going through. And having a conversation. How's it going? How are you feeling in the midst of everything? What can we do? And even if there's nothing you can do, just the fact that you reached out and you saw them and you showed care and concern is such a huge encouragement. And so, depending on if you're fostering or not, you're going to have one or two conversations and take the steps you need to take this week.
Thank you for joining us today. Please go and subscribe to the Family Meeting Podcast from your favorite podcast provider. If you found this information helpful, please share this episode on social media and invite your friends and family to listen in with you.
To find more content and information Lysandra and I provide, you can go to our website, familymeeting.org, or email us at info@familymeeting.org. If you'd like to shoot us a text or call us, you can send a voice message at 904-257-3062.
And we are excited to invite you to join us for our next family meeting next week, right here. You can find us at the same place. We are going to talk about how coming from a divorced home affects your marriage, because so many people have parents who are divorced. How does that affect your marriage? Maybe it comes into play. Maybe it can actually help and benefit your marriage, things to watch out for. So we're going to talk about that next week.
Thanks for joining us today for this family meeting. Have a great week, everybody. This meeting is adjourned. Did you guys see her panic there at the end because she forgot to put in the notes what the next episode?
Yeah, because I can't remember.
I saw your eyes get big, and I was like, "Is somebody calling? Like, what's going on here? What's the emergency?"
I was stalling until I could find in my notes what the next episode was going to be. But we did enjoy this conversation.
I'm just laughing at the notes because it says, "We want to invite you to join us for our next family meeting as we discuss an episode."
That's all it says is an episode. I'm like, what's the episode? But we have enjoyed this discussion. We'd like to hear from you, your experience with foster parenting, whether it was you or someone you knew, or maybe you were a foster child and you have a really cool success story or a horror story. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your stories and your perspective on foster parenting. So drop that in the comments so that we can hear from you.
And if you want that 10 scriptures to pray over your foster family, shoot us that email, info@familymeeting.org. We'll shoot that right out to you.
Other than that, you have a blessed week, and we will see you next time.